She handed him the receipt, but when he turned it over, his heart stopped. What was written changed everything. Watch till the end to see the full truth unfold. Like and subscribe if you believe no cry for help should go unanswered. The bell above the cafe door jingled softly as Marcus Raines stepped into Shelby's for the fourth evening in a row. The place always looked the same. Dim yellow lighting, old tile floors, cracked vinyl booths, and a humming neon sign that buzzed faintly against the windows. It wasn't the coffee that brought him here. God knew he had tasted better brews at gas stations. It was something else. Someone else. Behind the counter, the young waitress, Maya, stood arranging receipts next to the register. She wore the same white uniform with the light blue trim, and her apron was always tied just a little too tight at the waist. Her hair was pulled back neatly, but strands had begun escaping, framing her tired face. Marcus noticed everything, though he never let it show. He wasn't here to intrude. He was here to watch. "Evening," he said in his gravelly voice as he sat at his usual stool by the window. Maya looked up quickly, then gave a practiced smile. "Evening, Mr. Raines. Usual?" He nodded once, and she went to work. A simple cappuccino. No sugar, no small talk. From his spot, Marcus had the perfect view of the counter, the hallway leading to the back, and the reflection of the street behind him in the glass. It gave him angles. Lines of sight. It was a habit from his days in the Army, and later as a private security consultant. Always position yourself where you can see who's coming and who's hiding. Maya brought him the drink a few minutes later and placed it in front of him gently. "You all right?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice low, neutral. She hesitated just a fraction of a second, then smiled again, only this time it faltered. "Yeah, just a long day." He nodded, letting it drop. He didn't press, that was key. People didn't open up to force. She walked away, but Marcus's eyes followed her, not in a way that would make her uncomfortable, but in the way someone might watch the horizon during a storm, trying to read the wind. There was something about her movements. Tight, cautious, as if every step was measured. Marcus took a sip. The coffee was lukewarm, bitter. He barely noticed. The place was almost empty. A couple by the corner booth arguing in hushed voices, an old man nodding off over his cherry pie, and Maya working silently, always alert. Too alert for someone her age. He remembered his daughter Sam like that, just before the end. 19, holding herself together with the same thin veneer of smiles and "I'm fines." That same inward collapse that no one else noticed, until it was too late. That memory stung, even now. 10 years hadn't dulled it. If anything, it made Marcus sharper. He noticed what others ignored. He couldn't afford not to. The next night, he came in again. Same time, same seat. Maya was already behind the counter, wiping glasses that didn't need cleaning. Her hands shook, just barely, but enough for Marcus to catch it. "Long day again?" he asked. She flinched slightly, then turned. "Yeah, it's been a week, you know." "I do." This time her smile didn't come. Just a tight nod before she returned to her task. He sat quietly, listening. There was something else. Not just tiredness, not just stress. There was fear, buried just beneath the surface. She kept glancing toward the back hallway, toward a door with a peeling staff-only sign. Marcus took note. On Thursday, he saw it. A man came out of the back, someone Marcus had never seen before. Mid-40s, broad shoulders, tight black t-shirt, shaved head. He didn't walk like staff. He didn't carry food or touch anything. He just leaned against the wall behind the counter and stared at Maya. Her entire body language changed. Shoulders tensed, spine straightened, arms stiff. She didn't speak, just kept working. Marcus studied the man. Something in his posture, confident, dominant. He was there not as a guest or colleague, but as a threat. The man didn't say anything, not to Maya, not to anyone. He just watched, and Maya, for all her composure, couldn't hide the flicker in her eyes. The same flicker Marcus had seen in places where fear lived in silence. He waited until the man went back into the hallway. Maya exhaled slowly, thought she was alone. Marcus stayed another hour that night, pretending to read the paper. The next evening, it happened again. The same man, the same silent dominance. Maya approached Marcus's table with his coffee. He looked at her hands. They were trembling now more than before. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. She glanced at the hallway, then back at him. "Just tired." "You want to talk?" She looked away. "Thanks, but I'm fine." But she wasn't, and Marcus knew it. That night, he followed at a distance after closing time. Not too close, just enough to watch as she locked up, checked over her shoulder 3 times, and walked quickly down the street. She didn't go to a bus stop. She walked into a narrow alley between buildings, disappeared behind a side door. Marcus noted the address. Then he went home and started digging. By morning, he had a name. Simon Lang. Former club bouncer. Multiple complaints of harassment. No convictions. Nothing stuck. He was good at erasing traces, but not good enough for someone like Marcus. He also found something else. Maya had inherited the cafe from her aunt, who had died suddenly last year. Heart attack, they'd said. But police reports mentioned domestic disturbances in the months before her death. No charges, no witnesses. Marcus didn't believe in coincidence. On Saturday night, he came in earlier than usual. Sat at a different table this time. Maya noticed, but said nothing. The cafe was nearly empty. Simon appeared again. Same routine. But this time he whispered something to Maya when he passed behind her. She nodded barely. When she came to Marcus's table, he saw something in her eyes. Not just fear. A quiet, pleading kind of fear. She handed him the check and turned quickly. He didn't touch the bill at first, waited. Then, as he gathered his coat and stepped away, he looked down. 3 words, scrawled in shaky pen on the bottom of the receipt. "Please, help me." He froze. Then folded the paper, slipped it into his pocket, and walked out without a word. The cold air outside bit into his lungs, but it was nothing compared to the fire rising in his chest. This time he wouldn't ignore the signs. Not again. The wind had a sharp bite as Marcus stepped out of the cafe that night, the receipt folded tightly in his fist inside his coat pocket. He didn't unfold it again. He didn't need to. Those 3 words had etched themselves into his mind. "Please help me." It wasn't the first time he'd seen a silent cry like that, but it was the first time in a long while he felt it hit him so personally. Images of his daughter flickered in and out of his mind. Sam had never written a note, never asked for help, but the look Maya gave him just before she turned away, it was the same one. That quiet, restrained scream no one else seemed to hear. He didn't go home. He got into his car, turned the engine on, and drove a few blocks away before pulling into an empty lot and parking. He sat in the dark, hands gripping the steering wheel, thinking, watching the streetlights blink. Then, finally, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. Plain, white, with just a name and a number. Carlos Vega. A former investigator, old friend, and one of the few people Marcus still trusted with something sensitive. They hadn't spoken in over a year, but trust like that didn't vanish. Marcus called. Carlos answered on the second ring, his voice groggy but alert. You dying or something?" "Got something," Marcus said. "Not for the cops. I need you to listen." Carlos listened. They agreed to meet the next morning at a diner downtown. Neutral ground. Somewhere they wouldn't be noticed. When Marcus arrived, Carlos was already there, stirring coffee and flipping through a folder of paperwork. He still had the same thick beard, same weather-worn face, eyes like cracked stone, hard but not heartless. "Tell me," Carlos said without pleasantries. Marcus did. Everything. From the first day he noticed Maya's unease, to the man named Simon who watched her from the shadows, to the bruises, and finally the receipt. Carlos leaned back in the booth, nodding slowly. "Lang? I remember that name. He worked for that shady club downtown, right?" "Yeah. He disappeared from the scene after a few investigations came up dry." Carlos sipped his coffee. They never found hard evidence. Threats, silence, coercion, victims too scared to talk. He doesn't need to hit to destroy someone. "That's what I'm worried about." Carlos opened a tablet from his bag and began pulling up old incident reports. A few familiar headlines popped up. "Aunt of cafe owner dies from heart failure. Disturbances reported prior to death." Another, "Shelby's cafe changes hands quietly after sudden family tragedy." Marcus tapped the screen. "You think that's when he moved in?" Carlos shrugged. "He smells opportunity. Young woman inherits a struggling cafe in a quiet neighborhood. Vulnerable. Alone. He makes himself useful. Protection, financial advice, a few favors. Before she knows it, he's running her place. He doesn't run it," Marcus said. "He owns her. That's what I saw in her eyes." Carlos nodded. "We'll need proof. You saw the note, but that's not enough. She has to confirm it, and we need to catch him doing something actionable. Verbal threats, coercion, recorded." Marcus nodded slowly. "I've been watching. He sticks to the back, but sometimes he comes out. Talks to her in low tones. He's careful. He knows she won't speak. Then we give her a chance to scream where he can't hear it." They worked all day on the plan. Carlos had access to equipment, a compact audio recorder, small enough to tape under a table. A button camera disguised as a coat button. They mapped out the cafe's layout, where Marcus usually sat, where Simon lingered, which table had the best audio reach. 2 nights later, they returned. Carlos came in separately and sat at the back. Marcus took his usual stool by the window. Maya was there. Her smile was thinner than usual, her posture stiff. Simon was behind the counter, as always, silent, watching. Marcus handed Maya a folded napkin instead of speaking. She looked confused but opened it quickly, hiding it between her hand and the tray. The message inside was short. "You're not alone. Help is here." Maya read it. Her lips tightened. She said nothing, just nodded, barely. Carlos watched from the back, camera rolling, audio capturing every moment. They didn't expect anything explosive that night. Just interaction, language, tension, enough for a pattern. Simon came out from the back 20 minutes later. He walked up to Maya, said something Marcus couldn't hear. She flinched slightly. Not visibly, but enough. He stepped closer. Too close. "You smile when people talk to you," Simon said. Carlos caught it on the mic. "Yes," Maya replied. "Then smile at him, too. Or I'll remind you how." That was it, the line. Not enough for arrest, but enough for documentation. Carlos pressed a button on his phone, timestamped it. The 2 men left shortly after, not wanting to draw attention. Outside, Marcus was shaking, not with fear, but anger. "She's trapped," he said. "We need to get her out." Carlos nodded. "We will. Just need one more visit, one good outburst." If we can provoke him, get him to cross the line in public, we've got him. But how? Carlos thought for a moment. She trusts you. Next time, she gives you the check. Let's see if she's brave enough to write the rest of the story. That night, Marcus wrote a short entry in his notebook, the one he kept for things worth remembering. He wrote Maya's name, and beneath it, "Don't fail her, not this time." The next day, he didn't go to the cafe. He wanted her to have space, to think, to choose. But on the third night, he returned. Maya was working. Simon was watching. And something in the air told him the final chapter of this nightmare was approaching. The street outside Shelby's was quiet when Marcus pulled up that evening, but the silence didn't fool him. There was a tension in the air, something electric and unspoken, like the second before a thunderstorm cracks open the sky. He sat behind the wheel for a minute longer than usual, eyes fixed on the glowing sign that buzzed faintly above the cafe window. He didn't feel nervous exactly, but he could tell something was shifting. The plan they had crafted wasn't foolproof, and if Maya wasn't ready, things could fall apart fast. But he trusted her. He had to. Inside, the cafe looked the same, warmed by low lights, the usual hum of the coffee machines, soft jazz crackling from the speaker in the ceiling. There were two older couples seated near the back, quietly talking over pie and lukewarm coffee. Marcus took his usual place at the window, nodding to a man who passed by the door outside. The usual, calm, familiar. Maya appeared from behind the counter, eyes catching his for a split second. There was something different in her face tonight. Less fear, more control. Her smile was small but real. "Evening," she said softly. "Evening, Maya. Your usual? Please." She turned and walked to the back, her movements no longer robotic. She had made a decision. He could feel it. 10 minutes later, she returned with the cup balanced in one hand and a small folded receipt in the other. She set the coffee down first. Then, almost like an afterthought, she slid the receipt forward with 2 fingers and walked away without a word. Marcus didn't open it right away. He gave it a full minute, maybe 2. Then he unfolded the slip, holding it low beneath the table, careful not to draw attention. The handwriting was small but deliberate. "He'll get angry tonight. I told him I want out." Marcus looked up slowly. Simon was there, standing near the kitchen door, arms crossed, his face unreadable. He wasn't watching Maya. He was watching Marcus. The stare held for just a beat too long before Simon turned and vanished back into the hallway. Marcus felt his pulse rise. He reached into his coat, tapped twice on the small transmitter clipped to the inside of his collar. Carlos, parked a block away with surveillance gear, would know what that meant. Be ready. 20 minutes passed. The cafe emptied out. The couples left. The booth stood silent. The only sounds were the soft clink of cups being washed and the distant whistle of a kettle somewhere in the back. Maya wiped down the counter with slow, controlled movements. Marcus waited. Then Simon reappeared. He moved quickly, not rushing, but with a kind of weight in every step, like a boulder picking up speed downhill. He didn't hesitate. He walked right behind the counter, leaned in toward Maya, and whispered something. She stiffened, but didn't step away. Marcus stood. He crossed the floor calmly, setting down his cup as he approached the counter. Maya turned to him with wide, alert eyes. "You okay?" Marcus asked gently. Simon turned to him, voice low and full of venom. "This doesn't concern you." Marcus didn't flinch. "I think it does." Simon's eyes narrowed. "You've been poking your nose where it doesn't belong, ordering coffee and pretending you care." Marcus met his stare. "I don't pretend. The room felt suddenly smaller. Maya moved slightly to the side, placing herself just behind Simon near the register. Her hand reached down. Underneath was a hidden mic, already recording. Simon stepped around the counter. Now he was face to face with Marcus. The height difference was slight, but the tension was massive. "You think you're some kind of savior?" Simon hissed. "You don't know anything about me, or her. Stay out of it, old man, before I make you regret walking in here." And there it was. Carlos's voice came through the earpiece, barely audible. "Got it. Every word." Marcus didn't move. "You just made a mistake, Simon." Simon's hand twitched as if he debated whether to throw a punch. Then he looked past Marcus to the door. It was opening. Two men in plain clothes entered. One tall, dark-skinned, wearing a faded leather jacket. The other shorter, stockier, with sharp eyes and a subtle badge clipped to his belt. They didn't come with lights or sirens. They came like wolves. Quiet. Precise. "Simon Lang?" the taller one asked. Simon's lips parted, confusion flickering in his expression. "Who the hell are you?" "Investigator Reed, Civil Enforcement Division. You're under immediate detention for suspicion of extortion, coercion, and unlawful surveillance. Please step aside." Simon backed away slightly. "I didn't do anything." Reed nodded to the other agent, who produced a small folder and held up a warrant. "We've got recorded statements, 2 months of patterns, and a witness ready to talk. We can do this here, or we can do this with cuffs and headlines." Simon looked at Maya. "You did this." She didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. That silence was louder than any scream. Simon made a move, quick, towards the kitchen, but the agents were faster. In seconds, he was pushed to the floor, restrained, and his arms locked behind his back. The cafe was quiet again. Marcus stood still, breathing slowly. Maya came around the counter, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from adrenaline, the kind that comes after a storm. "Is it over?" she whispered. "No," Marcus said, "but you're not alone anymore." Carlos entered a moment later, nodding to Maya with calm authority. "We'll go over your statement tomorrow. You'll need legal support. I've got a few names. We'll help you get back the business in your name. Make it clean again." Maya looked at both men, and then slowly, for the first time since Marcus had known her, she allowed herself to sit. Just sit. No rushing, no trembling. "Thank you," she said, voice cracking. "Thank you both." Marcus sat across from her. "This place is yours again." She nodded. "It never really felt like mine. Until now." He looked down at the counter where her notebook still lay. A checklist, a schedule, and next to it, her pen. She reached over and wrote something quietly on the next blank page. "I'm still here." And this time it didn't feel like survival. It felt like beginning again. Carlos returned to Shelby's early the next morning. The cafe was closed to the public, the front blinds drawn halfway and the chairs still stacked on the tables. A soft yellow light glowed behind the counter, and Maya sat at the register with a half-finished cup of coffee cooling beside her. She looked tired, but awake in a new way, like someone who had finally come up for air after being underwater too long. When Carlos entered, she looked up and managed a small nod. "You came," she said. "I said I would," he replied. Marcus arrived moments later, carrying a folder tucked under his arm and a notepad bulging with notes and printed screenshots. He took a seat at one of the booths, nodding to Maya. She got up, took the chairs off 2 nearby tables, and sat across from him. Carlos remained standing, leaning against the edge of the booth. "Simon's in Holden. Judge denied bail last night after we submitted the recordings. You're officially protected under witness reporting laws. If he so much as tries to send someone near you, we'll know." Maya exhaled slowly, nodding. "But," Carlos continued, "this isn't over. He'll fight. His attorney will spin this as a misunderstanding or a business dispute. We need to prepare you for court. Testimony, documentation. We've got your audio and Marcus's statement, but your story, the full picture, needs to come from you." Maya hesitated. She glanced at Marcus. "You really want the whole story?" He didn't blink. "Only if you're ready to tell it." She folded her hands and began. "My aunt owned this cafe for 17 years. She worked day and night to keep it open, even after the neighborhood changed and the big chains moved in. She was stubborn, proud, and she never took crap from anyone. 2 years ago, she started getting visits from Simon Lang. Said he used to be a regular back in the early 2000s, but I don't remember him. He offered to protect her business. Said she was vulnerable, that her location made her a target. She laughed at him. Told him she didn't need help." Carlos nodded slowly. "What happened?" "He kept showing up. Said she owed him now for his time and his investment in the neighborhood. Then things started going wrong. Broken windows, slashed tires, a fire inspector who showed up twice in the same week. She started paying him just to make it stop. Not much, but enough." Her voice faltered. "She didn't tell me all this until it got worse. She had a panic attack one night, collapsed in the kitchen. When I took her to the hospital, she finally told me everything. I wanted to go to the police. She begged me not to, said he had people, said it would only make things worse." Carlos leaned forward, and then she died. Maya nodded, her eyes glassy. 2 months later, they called it a heart attack. I think it was stress, fear. Whatever he said to her the day before, I don't know, but she never smiled again after that conversation. When I inherited the place, he waited exactly 3 days before he showed up again. She looked at Marcus. He told me I had a debt now, that this was his turf, that my aunt had made an arrangement and I was part of it. "You believed him?" Marcus asked. "I didn't know what to believe," she said, "but he made sure I had no choice. He watched everything, took part of the earnings, told me how to talk to customers, when to smile, what music to play. He even made me fire a regular I'd just hired. Said she asked too many questions. I haven't had another employee since." Carlos scribbled notes. "Every time I tried to push back, something happened. A bad review appeared. A supply order was canceled. One of the machines broke down suddenly. He never hit me, but he didn't have to. The pressure was constant, like someone pressing their thumb on your soul." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Why now? What made you slip me that note?" She looked down. "Because you saw me. Not just as a waitress, not as a weak woman. You saw that I was drowning, and I remembered what it felt like to be seen. That's why." Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. Carlos cleared his throat. "We're going to prep you for the hearing. You'll have legal representation. Pro bono from the Victims Alliance Group. They've handled cases like this before. We've got video, audio, the note you gave Marcus, and now your testimony. It's a solid case." Maya nodded. "What about the cafe?" "We'll help you separate it legally, re-register the license under your name alone. You'll have to testify that your previous arrangement was under coercion, but with evidence, it'll hold up. We'll also request a protective order to ensure no contact from Lang or anyone affiliated with him." Marcus reached into his folder and pulled out a new sign, a laminated sheet with the cafe's logo and a line of bold text. under protection of the Civil Enforcement Division. "Hang this in the window," he said. "It won't stop bullets, but it'll stop shadows." Maya laughed softly, the first real laugh in weeks. "Thanks." Carlos stood. "I'll be back tomorrow. We'll go over your court statement. Try to rest, the hard part's over." "Not for me," she said, "but at least I don't feel alone in it anymore." They left her with the cafe. As Marcus stepped out into the chilly air, he looked back once. She was standing at the counter, straightening menus, not with fear, but with purpose. He turned to Carlos as they walked down the block. "She's stronger than she looks." Carlos grunted. "They always are." That night, Marcus sat at home and reopened the notebook he hadn't touched since the last case he'd ever taken as a private investigator. He flipped past pages of half-finished entries, then stopped at one. Sam, his daughter, a drawing she'd made when she was 10, a little coffee cup with a smiley face and a note that said, "Don't forget to take breaks, Daddy." He traced the ink with his thumb, then, slowly, he wrote beneath it. "This time, I didn't look away." Word about the incident at Shelby's spread slowly but inevitably through the neighborhood. Regulars who had missed that night came in the following days with questions in their eyes and cautious tones in their voices. Maya didn't explain much. She just said, "Things are changing," and offered their usual orders with a steadier hand. The laminated sign Marcus had given her hung in the front window like a silent guard, and though a few strangers came in and gave it a second look, no one dared comment. Simon Lang remained in custody, but news reached them within a week that his defense team was pushing aggressively for release. Carlos had warned them this would happen. Men like Simon didn't go down easily. They had connections, money, and intimidation tactics that reached beyond walls. But now there was a paper trail, a witness with protected status, and corroborating evidence collected by someone credible. That changed the game. Maya returned to her shifts with visible determination. There were still moments when the doorbell chimed and she stiffened instinctively, expecting him. But it was beginning to fade. Each day, her body remembered how to stand tall again, how to breathe without shrinking. She even rehired the part-time worker she'd been forced to fire months ago, a college student named Riley with a bright smile and quick wit. The cafe began to breathe again. Marcus kept coming too, not just as a watchful protector, but as a quiet companion. He sat in the same booth near the window and read the paper or his old notebooks. Sometimes Maya would bring him his coffee without a word. Other times they'd talk. Nothing too deep, just enough. It was how trust healed, not through grand speeches, but presence. One evening, Carlos arrived with an update. Maya locked the register and sat with the two men in the corner booth as the last customers filed out. "He's hired a criminal defense attorney," Carlos said, "one of the bigger ones, the kind that turns intimidation into legal theater. The bail hearing is set for next Thursday." Maya's face tightened. "And what happens if they release him?" Carlos was calm. "We'll request an immediate restraining order. You're covered under witness protection laws now, and the recordings we have give us leverage. But, yes, it's possible he'll walk for a while. This is going to be a fight." Marcus watched Maya as she absorbed it. She didn't panic. She didn't cry. She nodded slowly, eyes distant, as though preparing for a battle she already expected. "I'll be ready," she said. Carlos gave her a folder. "This is your testimony draft. I highlighted the key points we'll need to present at trial. You're not alone in this. You've got legal aid, protection detail, and two very persistent old men watching your back." She smiled just a little. I never asked for heroes. You didn't have to, Marcus said. We just showed up. The following week passed in a haze of preparation. Maya practiced reading her statement out loud in the mirror and with Carlos. She met the legal rep from the Victims Alliance group and sat through long conversations about case law and court procedures. Marcus stayed close, but never hovered. He walked her home after closing a few times, talked less, listened more. On Wednesday night, the day before the hearing, something happened that shifted the wind again. A man entered the cafe at closing time. Not Simon, but someone else. Broad-shouldered, neck tattoo, leather jacket. He ordered nothing. Just stood at the entrance, surveying the space with slow, deliberate eyes. Maya was alone behind the counter, Riley having already clocked out. Marcus was sitting near the back. He saw the man before Maya did. When she looked up and met the man's eyes, her face went pale. The man smirked. "You, Maya?" She didn't answer. Marcus stood up slowly. "Who's asking?" he said. The man looked him over. "Just a friend. Here to deliver a message." Marcus took a step forward, close enough to be between him and the counter. "That's so." She should drop the case for her own good. Simon's got people. People who don't like things getting messy. Maya stood frozen behind the counter, one hand gripping the edge tightly. Marcus's voice was steel. "You've said what you came to say, now get out." The man smiled again, showing gold-capped teeth. "Just friendly advice." "You've got 10 seconds, Marcus said. The man raised his hands mockingly and backed toward the door. "Have it your way." He left. Marcus pulled out his phone immediately. Carlos picked up on the first ring. "We just had a visitor," Marcus said. "I'll have officers circle the block within 10 minutes. Cameras?" "Got him. Maya's got a feed from the register camera." "Good. We'll file an intimidation charge." After the call, Marcus turned to Maya. "You okay?" She nodded barely. "He knew my name." Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. "They're trying to scare you. They know you're the only one who can break this in court." "I won't stop," she said. "Not now." The next morning, Maya walked into the courthouse flanked by 2 officers. She wore a dark blazer, clean jeans, and a scarf her aunt used to wear. Marcus and Carlos waited just outside the courtroom, not allowed inside for the closed witness segment, but close enough. When she emerged an hour later, her hands were shaking, but her face was composed. "He looked at me the whole time," she said, "but I didn't flinch. I told the judge everything." Carlos asked, "Did the judge respond?" Maya nodded. "Restraining order granted, bail denied. He's staying in custody until trial." Marcus placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did it." "No," she said. "We did." That night at the cafe, she closed early. They all sat together, Marcus, Carlos, Riley, and Maya, in the big corner booth with coffee and a half-eaten chocolate pie. For the first time in months, the cafe felt like a place meant for people. Not shadows, not threats, just life. Maya toasted with her cup. To surviving. Marcus raised his. To fighting back. Carlos raised his as well. To staying until the end. They clinked their cups quietly. Outside, the neon sign buzzed. Inside, the warmth held, and for once, nobody looked over their shoulder. Spring crept into the city slowly, wrapping the streets in a damp haze that softened the hard edges of the winter months. At Shelby's, the windows stayed open a little later, and sunlight finally reached through the glass to touch the vinyl seats. People came in more often now. Not just the regulars, but new faces too. Curious ones, cautious ones. The laminated sign that once sent silent warnings now seemed more like a badge of resilience. Something about the cafe had shifted. People could feel it. There was warmth in the air again, laughter sometimes. The aroma of coffee lingered longer, as if it didn't want to leave, but even as the days grew brighter, Maya remained watchful. The trial date had been set, and though Simon Lang remained behind bars, the looming court battle hovered over everything like a storm cloud waiting to break. She had made peace with the idea that justice would be slow, and that scars didn't vanish just because the wound had closed. Still, there were nights when she double-locked the front door, or hesitated before walking home, or woke in the middle of a dream, hearing his voice behind her. It didn't matter how many people surrounded her during the day. Trauma traveled quietly and alone. Marcus understood. He didn't say much about his past, but Maya could read between the lines. The way he watched the door, the way he positioned himself with his back to the wall, the way he noticed every strange car parked too long outside. He didn't stop coming. And he didn't stop observing. His presence had become something of a constant in the cafe. Not looming, just solid. A living reminder that she wasn't on her own anymore. Carlos came in once a week now, usually on Fridays. He'd update them on the case, prep Maya with small exercises, reviewing cross-examination possibilities, role-playing potential traps the defense might spring. Maya took it all seriously. She never complained. She wrote things down, asked questions, even recorded her own answers so she could listen to them later and hear if her voice cracked or her statements drifted. She was determined, not for vengeance but for truth. That distinction mattered to her. One evening, Riley found a small envelope taped to the back door. She handed it to Maya without opening it. Inside was a single photo, grainy, printed from an old phone. It showed Maya walking down the street alone, taken from behind. No note, no signature. Carlos analyzed it and confirmed it wasn't recent. Maybe weeks old. Still, it was enough to renew the temporary security detail and for Marcus to walk her home again, even if she said she was fine. "You don't have to protect me every night," Maya said once as they reached her building. Marcus replied without stopping. "I know." That was all. At the cafe, life carried on. Riley had become more than an employee. She was a friend, someone who brought music back into the space by playing old soul classics through the Bluetooth speaker behind the counter. Customers started asking her to choose the playlist. Maya gave her more hours and even asked her to help create a new dessert menu. It was the first time in over a year Maya had looked forward to change instead of dreading it. One afternoon, while going through an old drawer in the back office, Maya found a notebook that belonged to her aunt. Inside were invoices, recipes, and notes scribbled in the margins. One note caught her breath. "If anything ever happens to me, tell Maya not to be afraid. This cafe was always hers, even if she doesn't know it yet." She sat alone with the notebook for a while. Then she tore that page out and slipped it into her wallet, folded neatly behind her ID. The day before the trial, Marcus arrived with 2 large manila folders. He set them on the counter and opened one slowly, revealing copies of documents, photographs, and his own notes. "I put this together in case the defense tries to paint him as misunderstood," he said. Maya glanced through the pages. "You were building a case?" "I've done it before. It's muscle memory." "Why?" she asked softly. Marcus looked at her. "Because I didn't help my daughter when I should have, and helping you feels like answering a question that's been hanging over me for 10 years. Maya didn't speak. She just reached across the counter and squeezed his hand once, then let go. The night before court, she stayed late cleaning. She wiped every surface twice, rearranged the coffee mugs, replaced the flowers in the jar on the counter. Riley had gone home. Marcus had walked her halfway as usual and then turned back to lock up. Maya stood alone in the center of the cafe, letting the silence settle. She thought about her aunt, about Marcus, about the night she'd scribbled those words on a receipt and slid them across the table to a stranger who looked at her like she was a person and not just someone who brought coffee. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. The screen lit up with a picture she'd taken a week ago, Riley laughing behind the counter, Carlos mid-sip of coffee, Marcus smirking at something off camera. She smiled and whispered, "I'm still here." Then she turned off the lights and walked out, leaving the door locked behind her. Tomorrow would be hard, but she was ready. The courthouse steps looked taller than Maya remembered. Maybe it was the gray sky that pressed down over the city or the knot in her stomach that hadn't loosened since dawn. She stood still for a moment at the bottom, the traffic whispering behind her, the cold breeze threading through her coat. Riley had offered to come, Carlos too, but Maya had declined. She told them she needed to walk into this part alone, but she wasn't entirely alone. Marcus stood beside her, silent, holding a folder in one hand, his jaw tight but his eyes calm. "You good?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Just scared." "Good," he said, "means you're still thinking. Brave doesn't mean fearless." They climbed the steps together and passed through security. The hallway smelled like paper and disinfectant. The courtroom was already half full when they entered. Maya spotted Simon immediately. He was in a gray suit this time, his hair combed back, sitting straight beside his defense attorney like a businessman about to pitch a deal. He didn't look at her. Not yet. Carlos joined them just before proceedings began, whispering final reminders and confirming the order of testimonies. The judge entered. The attorneys rose. The case was introduced. Then the trial began. It started with the prosecution laying out the pattern: years of silent control, intimidation, coercion without violence, the system of fear that held Maya and her aunt hostage in their own business. Audio recordings were played. The video from the hidden camera was shown. The tone was controlled, measured, almost clinical. But Maya felt her skin tighten with each piece of her story laid bare for strangers to dissect. Then came her turn. She stepped up to the witness stand with steady legs. Her hand trembled only slightly as she was sworn in. The prosecutor's questions were clear and direct. Maya answered each one with as much detail as she could. She told them about her aunt, about the first visit from Simon, about the change in atmosphere, about how control became routine. When asked about the night she gave Marcus the note, her voice caught, but she recovered. She looked straight ahead, never toward Simon. "I didn't know what else to do," she said. "I didn't think anyone would believe me, but I had to try something." The prosecutor nodded and stepped back. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He rose smoothly and approached the stand with the casual confidence of someone used to breaking people down. "Miss Bennett," he began, "you claim Mr. Lang used threats and intimidation, yet there are no reports filed by you before the incident. Isn't that correct?" "Yes." "So you continued working in a place where you claim you were in danger for months without reporting it to authorities?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I was afraid." He leaned in slightly. "Afraid of what? That the police would arrest you?" "No, afraid they wouldn't." He paused, clearly not expecting that answer. He glanced at his notes. "Would it surprise you to learn that my client maintains you were in a consensual business arrangement, one in which he helped you avoid financial ruin?" Maya's throat tightened. "He helped himself to my life." "So you deny ever asking Mr. Lang for assistance?" I inherited a cafe, not a prison, she replied. The room was silent. The defense attorney stepped back. No further questions. When Maya stepped down, Marcus met her outside the courtroom doors. She looked pale, but her eyes were clear. He tried to twist it, she said. They always do, Marcus replied. Later, Carlos took the stand, explaining how the evidence was collected, the precautions taken, and how Maya had acted under duress. Marcus gave his testimony as well. He spoke plainly, like a man who had seen too many things to be shocked by cruelty anymore. She didn't ask for this, he said. She didn't want to become someone's victim. She wanted to run a cafe. The final day of the trial passed in a blur. Closing arguments were delivered. The judge took everything under advisement and promised a ruling within 48 hours. Maya left the courthouse exhausted. That night, she didn't go to the cafe. She stayed home, curled on her couch with the lights dimmed and music low. She didn't want to think, just breathe. 2 days later, the decision arrived. Guilty. Simon Lang was sentenced to 8 years for coercive control, illegal intimidation, and interference with a licensed business. The sentence was symbolic in some ways. It wouldn't undo the fear or erase the months of control, but it was a mark, a declaration that what had been done to her wasn't invisible. When Maya arrived at the cafe that evening, the door was already unlocked. Inside, she found Marcus and Riley setting up candles on the tables. Carlos was pouring coffee behind the counter. There were no customers, just them. "What is this?" Maya asked. Riley grinned. "A quiet victory." Carlos raised his cup. "To your voice." Marcus raised his too. "To your strength." Maya looked around. The cafe was hers again, not just by paperwork, by presence, by truth. She lifted her own cup. "To being heard," she said. They sat together for hours. No headlines, no speeches, just peace. Later, after everyone had gone, Maya stood behind the counter alone. She opened the drawer where the checks were kept. For no real reason, she reached in and pulled out the pad. She wrote on the top slip, "You helped me breathe again." Then she folded it, tucked it beneath the register, and turned out the lights. The city outside buzzed with its usual chaos, but inside Shelby's there was calm. She was still here. And now, finally, she was free. She found the strength to speak, and the world finally listened. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful true stories.